Welcome to the Obesity Medicine Podcast with your host, Dr. Rentea, board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. Here, we talk about a path to metabolic health, and we have real conversations about chronic weight management and living a full life. Just a reminder, I am a physician, but I'm not your physician. So everything that's on this podcast is for informational purposes, but please go talk to your doctor about what's right for you. There is no medical advice being given on this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, I'm really excited to air an interview where Dr. Lindsay Ogle, she actually interviews me, and we talk about maintenance and what is a weight loss plateau, what are some strategies that you can bust through that plateau. And I think that this is just a really practical, good aspect. We do talk a little bit about the mindset aspect as well, just really how fatiguing it is to constantly be trying so hard, and sometimes things are just not working out in the direction that you want. So I hope that you enjoy this interview today. Just a reminder, Dr. Ogle, she was on my podcast. I interviewed her. I think this was however many months ago, or maybe even a year ago at this point. And we talked about the importance of preventative medicine, especially when someone struggles from either overweight or obesity, because we know that there is so much shame in healthcare that people are engaging with the healthcare system less. And I know this firsthand myself. It's something that is such an unfortunate reality that I hope that we're starting to change this over time. But anyway, so that was a great interview. So we'll make sure in the show notes to link back to that episode as well if you didn't catch that. But I hope that you enjoyed today's episode and that you are having a great week. And I'll see you again Friday for your Friday 5.
Okay, I am so excited. Today's guest is Dr. Rentea. She is an amazing double board certified internal medicine and obesity medicine physician, and she sees patients in Indiana and Illinois through her clinic, the Rentea Metabolic Clinic, and she sees patients virtually in those two states. She also has a wonderful podcast, The Obesity Guide with Rentea, and I have personally listened to all of her podcasts. She has great information, practical knowledge that you can apply, and she was gracious enough to have me on a couple of months ago to talk about wellness and wellness exams and screenings. And I'm so excited to have her on today to share more knowledge. And we're going to talk about a really important topic, weight loss plateaus.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I love watching the interviews that you're doing with everybody. They're so high quality.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd love to hear, I guess we'll just start with what a weight loss plateau is and what's actually going on in the background. Is it biological? Is it behavioral? What's happening?
Yeah. So what I want to say with this is there's not a standard definition of a weight loss plateau, right? So that's what's tricky, is that I'll say what I think, but we could get 5 obesity medicine physicians in the room and everyone would disagree. So I do think that the first thing that really needs to be looked at here is that you are consistently doing the behaviors for weeks on end and nothing is changing. And I'm talking nothing. So I would say for my clinic, it's at least 3 to 4 weeks. So we kind of reach that month mark and you're consistently hitting the water goals, the exercise goals, the nutrition. It's not like, oh, well, 2, 3 days a week, things are kind of happening in a way I don't know what's happening. I'm kind of out of control. And then the other days I'm okay. It's really, you're always sort of doing those things and nothing is moving. And this is really usually when the behaviors are in place and nothing's been moving, it's a biologic thing that's happening. So your body is sort of usually getting to a place where it says, I would rather not really release anymore right now. And people fight this. It's normal. It's natural to get to plateaus. And what I find is, because this is a time when your hormones can reset during that time. So for example, like ghrelin that says you're hungry, start eating. Sometimes ghrelin can calm down some. Sometimes cortisol levels can go down because you can be quite stressed actually losing a bunch of weight. You're normally like exercising a lot and, doing a ton of things that put stress on the body. And so I would say for 4 weeks, you are doing all the things, nothing is moving. And I'm talking recompositions are not happening, like body fat's not going down, muscles not going up, inches are not going down, nothing is changing. That would be what I would define as a weight loss plateau.
Thank you so much for going over that. That is really helpful information. And I know, so many people are really just looking at the number on the scale. And like you mentioned, there is so much more going on. And I know you do a lot of body composition analysis with your patients. I think that's very important to get a true and accurate picture of what's happening because the number on the scale may be stagnant, but actually there's some recomposition happening, and that's a positive thing.
Yes. And people, whenever they're using body composition, they're so grateful to know that because they think nothing has changed, right? So, everyone that's listening, what we're talking about is last month compared to this month, the net number, meaning when you just hop on a scale, the number you're seeing looks the same, but they might have lost a pound of fat and put on a pound of muscle. That is you heading in a healthy direction. That is actually hard work, but you're thinking nothing's different, but really you got healthier. And if you were to keep sticking with that, even if nothing else changed and you kept going in that direction, in a few years, you'd be in a radically different spot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so powerful. And I can imagine when somebody hits a weight loss plateau or a stall or whatever we want to call it, that is incredibly frustrating and can be demoralizing, especially if we are not looking at body composition or if we are and that hasn't been changing either. Do you have any, go-to recommendations for your patients when they reach a weight loss plateau?
Yeah. So first of all, 100% what you're saying, how people are so discouraged because everyone's working hard, right? It's like there's so many things that have to change to ever get any traction. So, all right, let's say you notice that you're at a stall or a plateau. I would like to use the term instead of that you're maintaining. So instead of being like I'm stalled, like when we say it's so dramatic, it makes us feel shame. Like it's just so many things. So I like to say you've been maintaining, which is beautiful, by the way, because if you look at data, most people are gaining, not maintaining. So you have figured out how to maintain. Yay to that. So I always say we come back to the data. So this is a time to let our emotions to the side a little bit, kind of put that down and come back to data. So my recommendation would be about a 2-week period, 14 days. Can you track what you're eating? Not only what you're eating, but when you're eating it, hydration, your sleep, your stress levels, rate it 1 to 10 every day, because you might have a period where you're super stressed and you can see that with the data. So you do this for 2 weeks and you don't even necessarily need to measure and weigh everything. What we're really first trying to look for when you write out those 2 weeks, it's not to shame or make radical changes at first. It's to be able to find patterns. So the problem is when we look back, like hindsight with our brain, we think we're really accurate at what we're kind of pulling out, and we're usually not. So when we have it written out, we can say, oh, look at this. Every single evening, I'm having a snack at night when I'm not hungry, or I've been starting to like double up on whatever portion, or my hydration fell off a cliff. Like I thought I was doing great. In the winter, I really prioritize it. Suddenly in the summer, I forgot it exists, right? Or vice versa. And so you look through there, and then I would say you take one thing and you look for a 10% change. So that could be my step count is this, and I'm going to increase it by so much. My hydration is this, and I increase it by 2 cups. It's not radical shifts in everything. You can't maintain it. So once you have those 2 weeks, what's the one area that I think it would give me some traction? What's the 10% change? And then you repeat the process. Maybe, putting that thing into place for a few weeks, and then you look back, did it make a difference or not? And you look at the data, not do I feel it's different or not? What is the data actually showing me? I always say it tells the truth. What's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I love everything you just said. And I want to go back to what you said in the beginning about just using different terminology instead of saying a weight loss plateau or a stall. Like you said, that has a negative connotation to it. But really, if we frame it as weight maintenance, which we know in the field of obesity medicine is sometimes the hardest part and often is the hardest part. And I just did a podcast with the Plus Sides podcast earlier this week. That was great. I'm so excited for it to come out. But we kind of touched on this and how if we, so we get to a weight loss plateau and framing that mindset and what if we did maintain, moving forward, how much healthier we would be long term, that big picture, versus if we were going back to kind of like the yo-yo dieting that was happening before we had, our really effective tools like our GLP-1 agonists. Because previously the weight maintenance was so difficult to achieve. And now we're actually getting to a point where so many people are able to get to that point where the weight maintenance is really the goal and where people are at. And so I think we're just not used to it.
Totally. It wasn't achievable before, right? At least I'll speak to my own journey because I'm a patient as much as I am a physician with this. And I could never maintain what I had lost. It didn't matter how little or big. It was like, it would be like 2 seconds of staying there, be right back up, right? So the fact of maintaining it is a big deal, but I know that everyone always wants it to go quicker. Like there's this push. I actually asked this online the other day and I got some really interesting responses, but I said, why the urgency? Like, what is this where we within a year need to have lost the 100 pounds? And people had a lot of good responses, but at the end of the day, I don't think people quite realize what a lifetime commitment this is. Like this disease, unfortunately, isn't going anywhere. And so we have to manage it for life. So the quicker we can get on board that there's going to be times when things don't move. There's going to be times when I'm frustrated. There's going to be maybe some like backslides involved, some regains for valid reasons. The quicker we can get on board with that, I think we move past the things a lot quicker when we stop like resisting. It's actually like a lot of energy to be resisting things.
Absolutely. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how beneficial it could be to work with an obesity medicine physician or, a really great primary care physician or just having a healthcare team during the long haul of managing the chronic disease of obesity.
Totally. So the thing is, when you're not working with a specialist, they can write you a medication. They can kind of see you, I don't know, every 3 months, 6 months, things like that. The problem is the challenges are endless in weight care, especially, I would say, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this, but especially in the first 2 years, and especially the first 6 months to a year. I mean, that's just like a hotbed zone, right? Like side effects and all of that. But also the mental mindset of like, how do I keep going? What pivots can be made? And so when you work with someone, instead of something thinking, oh, this medication doesn't work for me, or, oh, I'm doing all these things and they're not working, we're able to just constantly pivot and make changes because we have a lot more in our toolbox compared to someone that's not doing this all day long. And I think that people think it's just a med, and it's like, no, there's about like 1,000 other tools. And so that person can adjust things for you more, can help you realize that you're not alone, can help reframe things. Like this is literally 90% of what I'm doing monthly in the clinic with my patients. It's looking at the data. They think it's not that good. I literally just had a visit with someone. Since February, they've lost 20 pounds of fat and only half a pound of muscle. That's phenomenal. Like, that's phenomenal. And they're like, well, I didn't know. And I'm like, listen, I was like, because they're like, oh, you're not going to be happy with me because the muscle had gone down a little, right? And I was like, no, I'm very, right? I'm like, I'm very happy. This is so good compared to the sort of like national averages that we would expect with muscle loss. So when you're working with someone, I find people make faster progress. Long term, they feel really capable and secure instead of feeling like at any moment the weight's coming back, because that's a real concern with people that they feel like at any moment they're just like stumble on the weight returning, right? And they don't realize, like I call it this list of 100, you are doing so many things to get a different result. But when you're not working with a specialist, you don't realize all that. And then very quickly you go back to things that don't support you.
Yeah, 100%. And what I see often in my practice is that, well, a couple things. Patients are often comparing their journey to others that they're seeing on social media or their friends or family members. And, as you know, everybody is different. Even if you're on the same dose of the same medication, you're going to have a different response. And that's okay because you have a different biology and, other factors in your life. So that is something I'm constantly reminding people is that we're going to have a different journey, and that's okay because we're tailoring your treatment to you and what's best for you. And also, I see the kind of like the finish line or the goal move over time. And I
Yes.
have to remind people where we started and what that initial goal was, because often they're already past that initial goal,
Yeah.
but they're still frustrated because, they've seen that success and, had that change and then they changed the goal. But we need to acknowledge and celebrate the fact that we have already got that initial goal. And because we've done so well, then that new goal popped up, which is okay and that may be appropriate, but you didn't fail because you haven't reached the second or third goal that you created for yourself.
Totally. Something that you bring up this where the goalpost moves, because I see this too with every single patient. I think it's really important when you're starting, I call it a weight care journey, but when you're starting this journey,
Mhm.
you need to write down an inventory of where things stand at that moment because I want you to write down things like I'm waking up a lot at night, my sleep quality is bad, my knees are hurting, it's hard to breathe when I walk. I went to the kids' school and couldn't walk the whole field during field day. Whatever these things are, because you're going to forget it in a hot second. And then you don't know how far you've come and you can celebrate that. You can come back to that at any time. But if you never wrote it down, it's really hard to sort of like retrospectively go back and try to remember because we just don't have great brains with memory.
No, and I think that that's why working with a physician who is solely focused on that is going to be so beneficial because I think most of us try to keep detailed notes and we know what your symptoms were in the beginning and we're able to compare that over time and
Totally.
remind you of those non-scale victories as well, which are so
Totally.
important.
Yeah.
I would love to hear some of the myths that you've heard about weight loss plateaus or maintenance phase, on whether that's why it's happening or strategies to overcome it and why they're not true, and then maybe some better ways to approach it.
I think probably if I had to think about kind of like myths or like the things that people think are needed, but that a lot of the time don't work, but it's counterintuitive, right? Would be that people think that more restriction is always the answer.
Mm.
So they assume because we've really been indoctrinated with this calories in and calories out, which I'm not denying the realities of energy, right? But there's a lot of factors that go into our weight set point and things like that. And so people, their first reaction is restrict more and exercise more. So restrict the food and exercise more. And what's interesting is sometimes, a lot of the time, the reason you even got into the plateau is because your body's overly stressed. Like it's a stress to even lose weight, to have that fat release. It's a stress. Some of the things that you're asking yourself, you might be waking up earlier in the morning to exercise. There's a lot that's going on. And so when you then push even harder, your body's like, now we're going to shut down even more. So that's what I see is that instead of like the best results I see are when people just I'm gonna use the term chill out, very medical, but but it's like ironically, it's like let's not strength train 5 days a week. Let's cut that back a little bit. Let's take some just let's call it low cortisol walks. Let's do some walks. Let's do some swimming. Let's do other things. Let's get you other hobbies to relax. Let's actually take the focus off of this for a moment. Not that we're abandoning self. I always say, I'm like, we're still doing nutrition. We're still doing these things, but we change the focus. And a lot of the time, even that stress reduction helps people to keep going. And you're able to see more clearly what it is you want to do. But this instant reaction of, I decrease food and I increase movement, that's not necessarily the answer that's going to get people there. That's the biggest one I see. What do you typically like? What are people's reaction in your clinic when they reach that?
Yeah, I think that's the number one as well that I see, and that's just diet culture ingrained in all of us, and also what we sometimes hear on social media. I also want to mention, I guess, kind of on social media and thinking about the stress response. I've had a few patients recently who just clearly, and they voice it, and it's also clear to me when they're talking, is they just are inundated with so much information, so much advice from all different angles and different perspectives, some of it evidence based, some of it not. And they are stressed out that they are making the wrong decision and they're hurting their adrenal glands or
Oh God.
whatever. And it just is, it's negatively impacting them. And my advice is just to, stop following all of these people, and listen to yourself. They already have all the knowledge that they need. And we just need to pare it down and focus on the things that are really going to have the biggest impact. And those are the simple things. We don't need to be worried about every single plastic that's hitting our bodies or anything like that. That's something that I've been seeing a lot lately.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like, and then they'll catch weird trends that are happening. So like, I don't know if you ever talked about this here recently, but there was this period where people were like, stop the meds and then come back to it a month later and restart the titration. And I never see it happen worse than when we have to do that with someone. And that's for bad reasons, right? Like they'll get a surgery or, there's different scenarios where that would be medically needed, but people think that that quote unquote jump starts things. And I'm like, that can't be further from the truth. But one person did it, that went viral. And then now everyone thinks that that's the case. And so I feel like what you're talking about with the taking breaks from social, you just have to, because every video or thought that you're hearing, you have to manage it when it comes in. That's a lot to manage, especially when everyone's in a different direction with what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing I would say with, stopping the medicine and then maybe restarting later on, another myth I could see would be that people say that the medicine is no longer working. And I'm not losing any more weight, so the medicine's not working. And that's not true. The medicine is working. The medicine is still helping with appetite suppression, helping with fullness, helping offset insulin resistance, and it's helping you maintain. And that's how in primary care, that's how every other chronic medicine works for chronic conditions like high blood pressure or cholesterol. They don't keep treating that chronic condition until whatever it's treating goes down to zero. It gets it controlled. And so the same thing with our medications for obesity. And then if we still are not at our goal, whatever that is that you decide as the patient and with your healthcare provider, then sometimes we do need to add on another medication. And it's adding and not substituting.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. I think when you're going on this journey on the way up, not relying on, oh, I'm so super suppressed, I can hardly eat. That's not what we're going for. And
Mhm.
so there are some of my patients that they love that, right? Like on the way up, they're like, oh, man, I really feel it's working. I'm like, let's not fall in love with that. And let's make sure that the dose is low enough where you're getting in whole-based foods. We want it as a tool. It's a help metabolically, but this is not, we create disordered eating where you're not eating and suddenly you think that that's amazing, that that's when the scale drops. It's like, that's not sustainable long term. You lose muscle that way. It's not healthy. Oh, I mean, there's many ways in which that's problematic, but that is not the reason that we're using the medications. And I think that gets glorified online as well. This like, I couldn't eat. I forgot to eat for 3 days. It's like,
Mhm.
no, that's not amazing at all. That's unhealthy.
No, no, not good, not good. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this important topic. Do you have any last thoughts or any words of hope for patients who may be on this journey and may be in maintenance phase?
I'm going to provide my own story here for a second because and again, I feel like part of what we've talked about here is how social kind of messes us up. So my journey has been something I've been working on my weight set point for about 6 years now. And it was like 10 pounds a year, 10 pounds a year, 10 pounds a year, 20 pounds, 30 pounds. The point is, just keep going. Just because you have months on end where the scale is not changing, you can still be working on habits. You can still be becoming a different person. It doesn't mean that that's where you're going to stay. So part of what you need to work on is the belief that you are going to be a different person, that you are really solidifying things, that it's no longer a question anymore that you get your protein or that you get your fiber or that you do your morning walk, whatever it looks like for you in your scenario. You keep moving forward regardless. And the length of time that you're in that maintenance phase, it's not an indication of where you're going to land long term. And I think that that's something really important to hear because I think sometimes we hear data like, well, within the first 6 months to 1 year, that's where you're going to end up. I don't find that to be true. The people that keep going, like I had a patient say to me one time, she said, there is no option to stop. She's like, I'm going to keep coming to visits. I'm going to keep doing stuff. That's the attitude of the person that's going to make it long term because this requires every day a renewal of commitment to what you're doing. And so don't let the length of the stall, the plateau, whatever name you want to give it, don't let that define you. Every day there's a new sense of you can keep going and make this happen. So I just talk about my own story because like I don't hear anyone talk about it in that way where I feel like I just keep going. And I think that that's really important for people to hear that it doesn't have to be this one person that loses 100 in a year. You can keep going. You can still reach your goals.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I think it's very helpful for many people who may be likely to give up if they're not having those results that they see other people have, those immediate results. But again, we're thinking big picture, your lifelong health, and that's what our focus is in obesity medicine. So thank you so much again. And how can people find you if they want to find reliable and helpful information on socials?
Yeah. So I spend a lot of my time on TikTok, but TikTok and Instagram, I have the same username. It's Matea Rentea MD on both of those. And then the best place to find me is really on my website, renteaclinic.com. And there, if you click on a podcast, you can find the links to Apple and Spotify and all of that. And my podcast, The Obesity Guy with Matea Rentea MD, I put a lot of energy into it because I really think that, just like the work you're doing, we do not have enough evidence-based, compassionate knowledge, but that's also like interesting and you actually want to listen to, right? And so if that's something where you're looking for sort of like continued support, I think that would a good resource for people.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Like I said, I've listened to all the episodes and learned so much. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you again.
Thanks so much for having me on.
That marks the end of today's episode. But if you're newer to the podcast, I want to tell you about something that we have, and it's a free podcast roadmap. So this is perfect for any of you that are listening where you want to be directed to very specific episodes. So let's say that you are just starting out and you want to know, what should I do right when I start on the medications? Or you're experiencing certain side effects on the GLP-1s, or you want to know what to do if you're in a plateau, or if emotional eating is taking over, or if hunger levels are high. So we have many different categories of episodes that we've talked about, because there's a lot at this point. So if you want to be able to navigate that very easily, we have it broken down by category and also the episodes that are there, and we hyperlink to everything. So you can just click on it and find the episode, easy peasy. If you want that, you can go to renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. We'll have it linked right here underneath the show notes where you're listening. And you can go ahead and get that free resource so that it makes it easy for you to navigate, because I know that it's really hard when someone has an established podcast. I am such a podcast fiend. I'm listening to podcasts all day long. And when I find one that I love, but there's a lot that are out there, I am so lost. So I hope that you enjoy this free podcast roadmap. Again, the link to get to that is going to be renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.